Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It is Monday, November 21st, and I'm Maggie Gray. College football coaches can weather many storms, but losing to Kansas apparently isn't one of them. Charlie Strong has reportedly been fired as the Texas Longhorns head coach, but is likely to be on the sidelines for the team's season finale against TCU this Friday. Stuart Mandel is a senior college football columnist for Fox Sports, and he joins me now. Stuart, Texas is turning the page on Charlie Strong, and Houston's Tom Herman is considered the frontrunner to replace him, but not so fast. LSU could be interested in Herman as well. Which school is the more attractive offer?
Well, Maggie, first to be clear, while there are reports that Texas has fired Charlie Strong, as of Monday morning, if that's the case, nobody had told him. But I think we all agree whether they announce it today or whether they announce it later in the week, it is a foregone conclusion after losing to Kansas. I think if Texas calls Tom Herman, Tom Herman's going to Texas. I don't think there's any question about it. It's a state where he has spent a considerable portion of his coaching career, going back to being a GA there. He, has a lot of connections, obviously, to the high school coaches there and the recruits there, and it's Texas. And people have tried to make it seem like there's reasons not to want to go there because of maybe the infighting you've seen there, because of the boosters are spouting off. At the end of the day, there is no program in the country where you have more resources and more access to blue chip recruits who are just right in your backyard. And so I don't think it's any question he would go there.
Okay, so then what about LSU? After a loss to Florida, Ed Orgeron looks like he may not get that job. If he doesn't, who would be the Tigers' #1 target?
For almost a year now, since the time that they almost fired Les Miles at the end of last season, Jimbo Fisher has always been the guy that AD Joe Oliva has had his eyes on. There were, to the point where there were at least some early negotiations with he and his agent towards the end of last season. Would he actually leave Florida State and go to LSU? I don't think it's a certainty, but they are certainly going to try. They're certainly going to make a run at him. They will probably be able to offer him a lot of money. And while Jimbo Fisher coaches at one of the most prominent programs in the country now, his background is in the SEC. He was at LSU, and I think he's always had, a bit of a pull to SEC country. So it'll be fascinating if it comes to that to see which way he goes.
Stuart, I want to get your thoughts on Brian Kelly and the Irish. They lost to Virginia Tech, blowing a 17-point lead at home. Notre Dame's record is 4-7, and the Irish travel to USC to play the red-hot Trojans. This is Brian Kelly's first losing season in South Bend. Is he in any trouble?
If it were up to Notre Dame fans, he would already be gone. They have basically revolted against him. But Jack Swarbrick, the AD, is a big supporter of Brian Kelly's. He said earlier in the season, quote, he will be leading the team out of the tunnel next season. And I believe him. I think that Swarbrick knows the history there, knows that it is not 1964 at Notre Dame anymore. It is a lot harder to win there. And we are a year removed from Notre Dame not only winning 10 games, but if Stanford misses a last-second field goal, it's a very good chance Notre Dame would have been in the playoff. And obviously he took them to the national title game before that. So I think Swarbrick will give him another year, but clearly he'll be on a very hot seat going into next season.
All right, Stu, we know there is the possibility for a lot of chaos when it comes to the college football playoff, but I'd like for you to give us your best case scenario. Now, aside from Alabama, tell us who you think is getting in and how.
Well, the very clean scenario, Maggie, would involve Michigan beating Ohio State this weekend and assuring that the Big Ten only gets one team. But I'm picking the Buckeyes, especially with the uncertainty about whether Wilton Speight will be available to play quarterback for Michigan. So if that's the case, there's going to be a great debate out there whether Ohio State can make the playoff without reaching even its conference championship game, which will be the case if Penn State wins this week. I'm of the belief their resume would be so strong that the committee could not leave them out. And then you're looking at Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson if it wins the ACC, and then probably Washington if it wins the Pac-12. If Washington does not win the Pac-12 and it's a 2-loss or even a 3-loss team, that's where all hell breaks loose with the playoff scenarios.
Maybe chaos is best. I think that's what we're all rooting for, as opposed to a clean break and a clean split. Stuart Mandel, senior columnist for Fox Sports. We appreciate it, Stu. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Maggie.
All right. As for the pros, Week 11 wraps up tonight with Houston and Oakland from Mexico City. But for a look back at what we saw on Sunday, here is Super Bowl champion Chris Canty with Ryan Aselta.
All right, Chris, we got to start Canty's Corner with the biggest story in football right now, and that is the Dallas Cowboys, who keep rolling this week. Dak Prescott leads Dallas to their 9th straight win. Cowboys, best record in football at 9-1. How impressed were you with the way the Dallas Cowboys were able to handle adversity early on against the Ravens?
Well, first of all, let's start with the adversity that they handled earlier this week with the announcement that Tony Romo would be the primary backup and he wouldn't return to be able to compete for the starting job. I think the Cowboys organization did a great job of handling that. The team responded. A great performance by Dak Prescott, by Ezekiel Elliott, but the offensive line gets the award for that game. They were able to hammer that Baltimore Ravens defense. Really didn't have a lot of success early running the football, only 27 yards in the first quarter, but from that point on, they went on to outrush the Baltimore Ravens 90-31. So really impressed that they were able to stay with it. And then the kind of protection that they gave Dak Prescott. I mean, Dak had time to make coffee back there, check his Instagram. I mean, he just had all kinds of time. And he was able to find the open receivers, 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Really impressed, again, by this Dallas Cowboys team. Right now, they're playing the best ball in the National Football League.
Yeah, Dak's so impressive, but Ezekiel Elliott sets the Cowboys' all-time rookie rushing record just 10 games into the season. When you look at Elliott, what he's done, what makes him just so tough to bring down if you're a defender?
Well, I think it's his acceleration to the hole and through the hole, but now he's starting to be patient, being able to set up his blocks. And, of course, the offensive line does a great job of creating room for him to work. But I think you start to see his talent in the open field. You start to see him with the elusiveness, being able to make defenders miss, and that's really what separates backs. I had an opportunity to talk to Curtis Martin recently, and he was saying that you really don't know what kind of running back you're dealing with until you get beyond the line of scrimmage. And so you see Zeke now starting to get into the open field. You start to see his gifts, his special skill set, tremendous talent. He sets the Cowboys' all-time rookie rushing record, but I think he's looking at Eric Dickerson's all-time rookie rushing record.
That record is well within sights, all right? They take on the Redskins on Thanksgiving Day. That should be a lot of fun, all right? Not so green pastures is our next topic. That's Bengals wide receiver A.J. Green is likely out for the rest of the season with a torn hamstring. Cincinnati also loses Giovanni Bernard, likely out with a torn ACL. Bengals now 3-6-1. Does this officially spell the end of Cincinnati's 5-year playoff run?
I think it does, and I think we're in danger of spelling the end of Marvin Lewis's tenure in Cincinnati. You know, when you start talking about the production and necessarily playoff wins, not just appearances, but wins, that organization, that regime hasn't gotten it done. So I think they've got to be looking at, okay, what do we need to do? Is it time to bring in a fresh voice in Cincinnati to get us over the hump? And I think you have to start at the top with Marvin Lewis.
All right, Bengals take on the Ravens in Week 12. Up next, feel the Lions roar. The Lions do it again with a comeback, this time to beat the Jaguars. Detroit has now won all of its 6 games with fourth-quarter comebacks. Chris, when you look at this Lions team, is this the best team in the NFC North?
I'd have to say so. They're the cardiac cats. They're finding ways to win close football games, and I'm really impressed by Matt Stafford, his ability to be able to spread it around. But if you look at that win that they had yesterday against Jacksonville, they found another way to get it done, not just with the offense, but with the other 2 phases of football and special teams, the punt return by Andre Roberts. And then you look at defense, the pick 6. So it's just really impressed to see what they were able to do in terms of being able to put together enough plays to win a game, not necessarily have it all be on the offense. Everybody holding their weight. I'd have to say the Detroit Lions have to be the favorite right now to win the NFC North.
They'll play the Vikings Thursday on Thanksgiving. First place in the division up for grabs. All right, we'll finish up with the real thing or not, or what I like to call, Chris, diamond or fugazi. I'm going to give you a bunch of teams here. Middle-of-the-road teams, 5-5, 6-4, 7-3. You tell me if they're the real deal or not. Indianapolis Colts at 5-5.
Fugazi.
Really?
They're pretenders.
2 in a row.
All day, every day. I'm not buying them. You want to buy them?
I think they're heading in the right direction. I do.
That's Quebec zirconia. That's not the real deal. And I'm going to tell you why. And I love Ted Anakino, defensive coordinator. I spent some time with him in Baltimore. But apparently he's not being able to imprint his philosophies on that unit. That defense is horrible. It's horrible. It's the worst pass defense in the National Football League going into yesterday. Marcus Mariota shredded that team. Even though the Titans didn't win that game, he had a day. So that defense, they've got to fix some things on that side of the ball. They can't rush the passer. They can't stop the run. So if you can't play defense in December and in January in the National Football League, it's going to catch up to you. I mean, the AFC South is a down division, but I still don't see them being the cream of the class. I think the Tennessee Titans, although they lost to the Colts yesterday, that's still the team to beat.
All right, Miami Dolphins now 6-4 after another win. What do you think?
I'm going to say Fugazi, and I say that
You're going to
because
upset someone around here.
No, listen, I say that because the Miami Dolphins are not going to be able to be playoff contenders this year. I just don't see it happening with what's going on in the AFC West and, of course, what's going on in their own division with the New England Patriots sitting at the top. I don't think they have enough to be able to catch any of those teams in terms of being able to compete for a playoff spot. I like the direction that the organization is going in, though. Ryan Tannehill seemed to be able to make a lot of plays at the end of yesterday's game. The last two drives, they scored touchdowns on. They were down by 10 with 6.5 minutes left, and they got it done. So I was impressed by that. They completed the West Coast swing. So, this is a Miami Dolphins team in past. They would have found ways to lose those games. They're finding a way to win those games now. So I'm going to say Fugazi. They're pretenders, but it's heading in the right direction. They should be looking for brighter things in 2017.
One more for you. Tampa Bay Bucks, who upset the Chiefs on Sunday. What do you think?
Diamond. I'm going
Ooh,
Diamond. I'm
really?
Going
You like the Bucks?
I like the Bucks. Listen, I like Jameis Winston. I like what he brings to the table. All the adversity that this team has been through early in the season, yet they just keep fighting. They keep scratching. They keep clawing. They're only one game back in the division from the Atlanta Falcons. As crazy as that sounds. And they beat the Falcons in the season opener this year. So this is a team that knows it can compete with the best in its division right now. And what's going on in the division, New Orleans kind of sliding back. The Carolina Panthers have certainly regressed from a year ago. Why not the Tampa Bay Bucks? Why not the Bucks?
All right, good stuff. You also got some good advice. Stay away from cubic zirconias. Chris and I are going to return it a little later in the show to talk about what might be ailing Aaron Rodgers. But first, it's that time of the year, time to talk about SI's Sportsman of the Year. With a look at the finalists, here's Maggie Gray and Sports Illustrated executive editor Stephen Cannella.
Well, thank you, guys. And what do Serena Williams and Derek Jeter and Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps have in common? Well, not only are they world-class athletes, but they have received Sports Illustrated Sportsperson of the Year award. So who will win the prestigious honor in 2016? Well, the list of 12 finalists have been announced, and I'm pleased to welcome in the executive editor of Sports Illustrated, Stephen Cannella, working tirelessly on this list.
It's the most magical time of the year, Maggie.
It's a magical time.
Season.
It is sportsperson season. It's expanded to a whole season, really.
It has.
And in 3 times throughout the history of this award, SI has given it to teams.
Yeah.
You had the 1980 Olympic men's hockey team, the 1999 women's soccer team that won the World Cup, and the 2004 Boston Red Sox.
Right.
Now we have the Chicago Cubs,
Yes.
who broke this long drought to win the World Series. Are you judging teams differently than you would individuals?
Yeah, sure. I think when this award has been given to teams, it's been as much about the fan base and what the fans have gone through, and it's in some ways it's an award for the fans of that team as much as it is that actual team. I mean, let's face it. Yes, the Cubs broke a 108-year curse. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, and Javier Baez and those guys, they don't care so much about that curse. They're in their 20s. They haven't been around for much less 108 years, 10, 20, 30 years of Cubs misery. This is about what the fans have gone through, what the franchise itself has gone through. So yes, it's a recognition of what they did on the field, and winning the World Series was a fantastic achievement, especially the way they did it, coming back from 3-1 down against the Indians. If the Cubs were to win this award, this would be as much a gift to Chicago and Cubs Nation as it would be a recognition of what the players did on the field.
Absolutely. The only person to ever win this award twice was Tiger Woods.
Yep.
LeBron James is a finalist once again. He won the award in 2012. How much does an athlete need to improve on what they've already done to be considered for a second time?
Well, there is that sense that you need to use a cliche, you need to take your game to the next level in some ways, and Tiger certainly did that. Tiger's winning the award not just once but twice was as much about pure dominance as anything else. He just was blowing away the golf field. LeBron is about dominance on the court, of course, but this is as much about the promise he kept, coming home, keeping his promise to Cleveland. There's a larger story to this than just a championship for LeBron. So yes, he had a great year. He had a great series. He put that team on his back. There are another team that came back from 3-1 down to win that series. But this is about more than just dominance on the court. This is about something more, what he means to the city of Cleveland, Akron, all of Ohio.
There's been one person to win the award who was not an athlete or a coach. It was Pete Rozelle, who was the NFL commissioner. Vin Scully is a finalist after 67 years behind the microphone. What would it mean for Vin to win this award? No broadcaster's ever done it.
Yeah, it's funny. Often in past years, we've asked lots of our writers to nominate their personal sportsman of the year, and every year Vin Scully gets somebody's vote. I think what it means, what it shows that he's even in this conversation is the effect he's had on fans and just his status as the voice of baseball, basically, for more than 6 decades. Again, there are very few fans out there who have been there every step of the way through Vin's career, going back to when he was broadcasting Brooklyn Dodgers games. But there's something about his connection to the past, that sort of long tapestry of history that flows through baseball more than any other sport, and the way that binds generations of fans of certain teams. I think that's the meaning of what Vin Scully is, that what he stands for is not just being a great broadcaster, which he is, but he stands for the way that fans connect to teams and sports in a way that's special in baseball in a way that might not be in other sports.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Truly, it would be a Lifetime Achievement Award for
absolutely.
Vin Scully. Let's talk about Leicester City. They won the Premier League last year. Now, for fans who only follow North American sports, they may not know Leicester City, but they were essentially the biggest underdog that we've seen to pull off what they did was essentially go from worst to first. I mean, this is like stuff movies are made of. It's like Hoosiers level of an upset. But since they are not familiar with an American audience, how much does that work against them?
Well, it probably does work against them. We do cater to an American audience, and we're going to ask fans to weigh in. We want to hear their voice too. So I'm guessing American fans may not have Leicester as high on their list as some of these other candidates. However, as you point out, this is a huge story. In worldwide sports, this is probably the story of the year. Leicester City, they scoff at this Cubs drought. 180 years, that's nothing. Leicester City, first Premier League championship, their only one since the club was founded in 1884. And as you point out, this is a monster upset. If you had bet the Cubs and Leicester City to win the Premier League and the World Series in the same year, you would be a very rich woman. You wouldn't be doing this right now, Maggie. We'll put it that way.
Oh, no, I do it for the love of it, Stephen. I would be here. A year ago, Simone Biles was a finalist. Not many people knew who she was. Now she's one of the most famous athletes.
Yeah.
On the planet. Mary Lou Retton was the only gymnast to win this award in 1984. What would it mean for Simone Biles to become the second?
Well, she outdid what Mary Lou Retton did. Mary Lou Retton did when she won the award. 4 gold medals, that's the most by any American woman gymnast. This is really special. I mean, as you point out, she was in this conversation last year before she had really done anything, at least in terms of being on the world stage. She had won world championships, but in terms of most mainstream fans, Simone Biles was a non-entity at that point. She followed through on that promise. She followed through on that potential. I think this would be a testament not only to how good she is as a gymnast, and she is. She's the Michael Jordan of women's gymnastics right now. She's that dominant. It's also a testament to she's got a long career ahead of her. She's going to be back in 2020 for the Olympics. Her Olympic medal haul is far from over. The fact that she's in this conversation with people like the Cubs, with people like LeBron, with people like Leicester City, that's a testament to the impact she's already had at a very young age, and she's not done yet.
Okay, we know that fans can go to SI.com. They can vote for who they would like to see win Sports Person of the Year. This is normally very difficult to whittle down these finalists. How are you sleeping these days?
Not well. This is the best kind of decision to make, and this is the best time of year to have to pick an award like this. There are some years we're really struggling, honestly, to find a candidate that's worthy of the history of this award. That's not going to be a problem this year. We have a ton of incredibly strong candidates, any of whom could win Sports Person of the Year award in any other year. It's a tough choice to pick just one, but yes, we do want to hear what fans have to say. We want to hear what would you guys do if you were sitting in our shoes. We're going to announce the winner of this award the first week of December. We have a gala event in New York City on the night of December 12th. We're looking forward to that. It's going to be a really fun night. We're looking forward to hearing what fans have to say, what they would do if they were sitting in my shoes.
All right. Well, it's big shoes to have and a big decision to make. Well, what, 10 and a half?
Average size.
Average size. But good luck making this big decision.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Chris, if the 2016 season wasn't already shaky for the Green Bay Packers, it combusted on Sunday night. The Redskins committed nothing short of a 42-24 blowout against Green Bay at FedEx Field. And now, to add a little insult to injury, the loss comes on the heels of a story in the media that paints a less than flattering picture of the franchise, primarily Aaron Rodgers. And let's start with the Packers as a whole here, Chris. After what you saw last night, do you think it's time for wholesale changes? Does Ted Thompson need to blow this thing up and make major changes in Green Bay?
Well, I don't know about blowing the whole thing up because you still have Aaron Rodgers, who's an elite quarterback. He's still playing at an elite level. You could argue that he's not the number one quarterback in the National Football League right now, but if you look at the numbers, he hasn't regressed as much as people might like to paint the picture. So I think you've got to retool around him. You've got to get that running game going. You've got to get the offensive line fortified. And then defensively, they've got a lot of work to do on that side of the ball. They've got some aging stars. They need to think about regrouping in terms of being able to draft and use free agency as an opportunity to bring in some of the guys that can help with the culture change on that side of the ball with Dom Capers in the system that he runs. So I think you've got to put more around Aaron Rodgers. But wow, that was a beatdown yesterday against the Washington Redskins. It looked ugly out there.
When you talk about regrouping, should that involve Coach Mike McCarthy? Should he be worried about his job right now?
Well, that's not the Green Bay Packers way. They believe in continuity in terms of head coach and general manager, and I think that they're going to continue to stick with that. Now, when you hear Mike McCarthy say some of the things that he said last week in the media, talking about his record as being a good head coach, it makes you question because there's more conversations going on about it than we probably would like to think. But ultimately, he is a good football coach, and he has guided this team to world championships. So, you know, I see a tough decision for the Green Bay Packers in terms of if they were going to move away from Mike McCarthy. I think they try to keep that continuity between the head coach and the quarterback, and they try to get this thing turned around.
Clearly, he's feeling it, though, if he's talking about his record.
Everybody's feeling it,
Yeah.
especially after that national game last night, getting embarrassed like that. Everybody's feeling it.
All right, now the Bleacher Report article I mentioned claims that Rodgers hasn't spoken to his family in 2 years, and the off-field distractions may be affecting his play. Chris, as a player, how do you manage what's going on at home, and if there's some problems at home, and also going to work and really performing at your highest level?
Well, you know, it's always a lot of stress being a player in the National Football League during the course of a 16-game regular season. That's a long time that you got to try to stay on point. And a lot of people around you have to make some tough sacrifices. So I don't know what's going on with the Aaron Rodgers situation. I know the Bleacher Report article came out. I have a tough time giving a lot of credence to a lot of the things that are being said. Jermichael Finley and Greg Jennings, those guys obviously ended their careers unceremoniously in Green Bay. So, you know, I'm trying to be sensitive to the fact that all of this can't be Aaron Rodgers' fault. You know what I'm saying? All of it can't be on Aaron Rodgers. The guys guided this franchise to a world championship. They played in 2 Super Bowls under his era. So he's a good football player. They're just going through a rough patch right now. But certainly when you have off-field issues with your family and your personal life, they definitely can impact your performance on the field. But I don't know that we're seeing that with number 12.
You're taking it with a grain of salt. Let's take Jermichael Finley. You mentioned him. Some of the things he said here, choice comments, really stating that Rodgers is not a leader. As a football team, can a team be successful if their quarterback isn't the leader of that team, that maybe that falls on someone else's responsibility?
Well, a quarterback doesn't necessarily have to be the vocal leader. You know, those quarterbacks, it's a different position. They've got a lot on them to be able to prepare in terms of being able to execute in the games on Sundays. So I think that if your quarterback shows the work ethic and establishes the standard in the organization in terms of how the players are going to work, then I think that's the kind of leader that you're looking for at that position. There are a lot of leaders on a football team. A 53-man roster, there are a lot of guys in locker rooms that are leaders, especially on championship-level teams. A lot of guys being able to grab the mantle at different points during the course of the 16-game regular season and help the team be successful, give the right message in the right time to motivate the guys to get their jobs done. So it's just not all on one guy to be the leader.
What's the type of leader you as a player latched onto, a guy you wanted to follow? There's many different styles to leadership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to be a guy that puts in a lot of effort, a lot of work. You've got to be in the building early. You've got to stay late. You've got to do the extra things to give your team a competitive advantage. But you also got to be a guy that's willing to be accountable for his performance on the field. If you're not getting it done, if you have a bad game, you've got to be the first to step up and say, hey, guys, I've got to be better. You've got to take all of the blame. You distribute, you share the credit, and you take all the blame. That's the thing about being a leader in the National Football League. I think that the guys that do it best are able to do that. One of the other qualities that you want from your leaders in the locker room is a guy that understands the vision of the head coach and the coaching staff, and he's able to share that message with the rest of the guys in the locker room. When you get everybody on the same page in the organization, the locker room, the coaching staff, the front office, that's when you're able to catch that lightning in the bottle and have success. The really, really good teams, the really great organizations can do that consistently.
Interesting times for a team that hasn't had a whole lot of turmoil the last bunch of years. We'll see how this transpires the next 5 weeks of the season. Chris, thanks.
Interesting times in Green Bay for sure. And that's going to do it for this episode of SI Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern when I'll be joined by NASCAR legend and 4-time NASCAR Cup champion Jeff Gordon. Until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Enjoy your Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.